reduce the noise a little bit. So the sisters are here. So what I want to do is, without further ado, alhamdulillah, so the Outreach Civic Engagement Subcommittee, alhamdulillah, in conjunction, in partnership with CARE, has organized this program. So I'd like to call upon a young sister who is a member of the civic engagement team. She's a lawyer by profession. She's a law student, and she's going to graduate in May. Alhamdulillah, it's her idea. She came to us and she said, here's what we need to do. She's a sister from our community. She grew up here. She's very well educated. So inshallah, I'm going to call upon her to get the program started, inshallah. Sister Afnan.
Assalamu alaikum. Do you guys want tables? We can ask our brother Samir, can we get like a table? Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Jazakallah khair for joining us. I just wanted to say Jazakallah khair to Brother Samir for the introduction, and thank you for having me as a part of the EPIC Civic Engagement Committee. I also wanted to say Jazakallah khair to both EPIC Board and to CARE for working together to help make this event happen. It was truly a team effort, and I really appreciate everybody's help on making this project a reality. So we all know that voting is really important. However, what's even more important is making an educated vote. There's many people going out there and voting right now. However, they don't necessarily know who they're voting for or why those votes are being made. They vote for specific candidates because either their family and friends tell them to do so, or because somebody from an organization suggested that they should make that choice. It's imperative that we know about the candidates that we are voting for before we go to the polls. These are the people who represent our interests as a Muslim community on a local and federal level. Their actions directly impact our very everyday lives, and so that we have to be smart about who we give that power to. So to test our knowledge, before we get started with the main event, I had a small pop quiz. So can anybody tell me what are the 3 branches of government? Yes, brother. Excellent, thank you. The 3 branches are the executive branch, which includes the president, the legislative branch, which includes the House of Representatives and the senators, and the judicial branch, which includes the judges which includes all the courts. Next question, how many senators are there, and how long do they serve? Yes, brother. 100 total senators. Excellent. Do you know how long they serve? 6 years. Excellent. So there's 2 senators for every state, which makes a total of 100 senators, and they each serve for 6 years. How many House of Representatives are there, and how long do they serve? This is a little bit of a tricky question. Does anybody know? Yes, brother, over there. Good, excellent. How long do they serve? 2 years, excellent. So there's a total of 435 House of Representatives, and they serve for a total of 2 years each. They're chosen by the number that is to each state depends on each state's population, based on the census. And finally, for the last question, I'm going to read a few statements, and I want everybody to tell me whether this law is real or fake. Okay? So number 1, in Illinois, it's illegal to sleep in a cheese shop. True or false? In Illinois, it's illegal to sleep in a cheese shop. True or false? Cheese shop, yeah, like where they make cheese, where they sell cheese. Raise your hand if you think it's true. Yeah. Actually, it's true. It is illegal to sleep in a cheese shop in Illinois. Okay, number 2, donkeys are not allowed to sleep in bathtubs in Arizona. True or false? Raise your hand if you think it's true. It's true. Donkeys aren't allowed to sleep in bathtubs in Arizona. Next, it's illegal to use a whistle in Delaware. True or false? Raise your hand. It's illegal to use a whistle in Delaware. True? If you think it's true, raise your hands. It is actually illegal to use a whistle in Delaware. My brother loves this one. True or false? You cannot put ice cream in your back pocket in Alabama. True or false? Raise your hand if you think it's true. It's true. You can't have ice cream in your back pocket in Alabama. And lastly, in good old Texas, criminals who intend on committing a crime in Texas must give their victims 24-hour advance notice. True or false? True, raise your hand. It's a real law, you guys. A criminal who intends on committing a crime has to let the victim know 24 hours in advance, not only that they're going to be committing the crime, but also what kind of crime they're going to be committing. So these are real laws, and they're still on the books, and they've been existing for a while. These showcase the importance that it is, how important it is to elect officials who take matters seriously and take our ideas and our situations into consideration. So now I'm going to hand over the mic to Brother Ikram, who will be the moderator for tonight. He is not only a dear member of our community, but he's also the outreach director of CARE DFW.
Alhamdulillah wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I know this program should have been held a week earlier, but it is better late than never. Some of you have already, as we learned last night, that some of you have already voted, and some yet others may have voted today, but we have 3 more days of early voting. Tomorrow, day after tomorrow, and the day after. So on the 2nd of November, the early voting stops, and then we have a hiatus of a few days, and then on the 6th of November, we have the general elections. So, inshallah ta'ala, first of all, I'd like to thank the management for allowing us to make this presentation tonight, and hopefully this will be an epic tradition going forward. So tonight we have 2 presenters, and I will introduce both of them. The first one, as she leaves, she will bring in the other presenter. So the first presenter is Sister Aisha Yu Ki. She is an attorney, assistant vice president at Robert Half International, and a social entrepreneur. She is a founding member of the American Muslim Professionals of Dallas, former board member of the DFW Muslim Bar Association, and chair of the Dallas Bar Association's International Law section. Now, the other speaker is Sister Farhana Qureshi. She is a managing partner at the firm Qureshi and Saleji in McKinney, where she practices family law and employment law, specifically dealing with cases of discrimination based on race and religion. Sister Farhana is also the chair of the board of directors of the Montessori School of Excellence and Islamic School in McKinney. So I ask Sister Aisha to make her presentation. Jazakumullahu khairan.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, I would like to thank CARE DFW and the Epic Masjid for hosting us. As you said, this is a very timely topic, so we very much thank them for this. So before I jump into this presentation, Know Your Candidates, there are a few key races that we wanted to highlight that are very critical for the EPIC community specifically. The first is U.S. Congressional District 3. Sam Johnson is vacating that after 25 years, so that is one race that you definitely need to keep an eye on. There are 3 candidates that are going to be running for that seat. There's Lori Birch, who's a Democrat, Van Taylor, who's a Republican, and Christopher Claytor, who's a Libertarian.
Slides can be moved from here.
Right. Yeah. before I jump, yeah, thank you. There's also a write-in candidate. So does anyone here know what a write-in candidate is? Like, stand up. Yes, sir. Great. So yes, this is Jeff Simmons. He is going to be a write-in candidate for this race. Again, this is U.S. Congressional District 3. So there's the other race to keep in mind is after 33 years, there's a chance to elect a new member for the State Board of Education for District 12. So the SBOE is going to take a final vote on November 12th on some very important changes to the social studies curriculum. Now, the reason this is important, and I'm sorry about the noise, is that this is going to affect students. Are there any students in the room, high schoolers? Parents of high schoolers, this is very critical because there's two changes in particular that you need to pay attention to. The first is on the topic of U.S. government. They're proposing to reinsert references to Judeo-Christian, so especially biblical law, in a section on the major intellectual, philosophical, political, and religious traditions that informed the American founding. Oh, are these okay? So I'm going to skip over this because I just heard that we're going to be covering this later, so I will not go into that further. And I guess I'll go ahead and just launch right into Know Your Candidates. But again, just a quick overview. So races to keep in mind: State Board of Education District 12, and then U.S. Congressional District number 3, as well as two other races that are important to EPIC community is Texas State Senate District 8 and Texas House of Representatives District 89. I know these are a lot of numbers and figures, so I'm sure that we'll have this presentation available afterwards to anybody who needs this. So I'm going to jump right into Know Your Candidates. First, we're going to cover the office of the U.S. Senator. Now, I know that our host just mentioned the different types of branches of government. Obviously, the U.S. senators are members of the Senate, and they're one of two parts of the U.S. Congress. So the House of Representatives is the other. So in this election, we are going to be voting on the U.S. senators. So this is called the U.S. midterm election. The Senate as a whole basically is responsible for writing and passing laws. So as a lawyer myself, this is the branch of government that I'm very interested in, just kind of knowing like all the power that they have, when you weigh it against the executive branch and the judicial branch. They approve many presidential appointments. As you just saw recently with the Kavanaugh hearings, the Senate was very much involved with that. They ratify treaties with other countries. So this is kind of where the element of international law comes into place. In addition, their senators, they play other roles. So the first senator we're going to cover that's up for election is Ted Cruz. He is with the Republican Party. You can see the various topics up there. I'm not going to go into all the topics. You can definitely read through the slide. I think that I will focus, on certain issues. I think, for example, I think civil rights and immigration are the two issues personally that I think I'll highlight here. So on civil rights, Ted Cruz's platform is the Supreme Court's gay rights ruling undermines the Constitution. He voted no on reauthorizing the Violence Against Women's Act. On the topic of immigration, his platform is that children deported with parents can come back if they are citizens. He gives police more power to ask about immigration status. So this is a quick overview of this candidate. The next candidate you have is a Democrat by the name of Beto O'Rourke. On the various topics you can read above, his positions on them, and then in specifically civil rights, he supports pro-women's rights, he enforces against anti-gay discrimination in public schools, he enforces against wage discrimination based on gender. And then on the topic of immigration, he supports the DREAM Act and comprehensive reform when it comes to immigration. And if anyone has any questions, we definitely want to make this interactive. If I can't see you, please just stand up. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take those. And the third candidate for this role is Neil Dyckman. He's a libertarian. Libertarian is the, it's basically the third party. Everyone says we have a two-party system, but in reality, there is a libertarian party that not many people know about. So they're kind of the underdogs. His platform, or where he stands as it relates to, I guess, immigration specifically, he supports the legislation offering clearly defined pathways for immigration and for citizenship. So those were the three candidates that are running for the office of U.S. Senator. Moving on, we have the office of the governor. There's 3 candidates that you can see listed right above. I'm going to jump into their specific platforms, but I did briefly want to give you an overview of the governor's office. The governor is an officially elected state's chief of executive by popular votes. Their job is similar with that of a president, but just basically on a state level as opposed to a federal level. Officially, state governors are in charge of overseeing the government's executive branch, and a governor serves as the chief executive officer. Their job duties include oversight of state executive leaders, policy review, etc. Budget management is huge. Basically, that tells you where your tax dollars are going. And their main responsibility is communicating with the president when federal assistance is needed for a state emergency. So as you might be familiar with, our state of Texas did have a few federal emergencies. We had Hurricane Harvey more recently. So this is where the governor is critical in basically working with the president on federal financial assistance. So our first candidate you can see is Greg Abbott. He's with the Republican Party. You can see all of his stances on the various issues, specifically on civil rights. He is basically of the platform that conscience dictates if marriage is only one man and one woman. He shepherded some of the strictest voter ID legislation in the country. And by voter ID legislation, that basically means making sure that only people who are eligible to vote, and in some instances really making it tough for people who otherwise are eligible to vote to be able to do so. On the topic of immigration, Greg Abbott supported adding 500 new state troopers plus Texas Rangers at the border, and this is the U.S. border with Mexico. Abbott has signed state budgets that dedicate $800 million in state resources to the Texas-Mexico border. Our next candidate is a Democrat by the name of Lupe Valdez. Lupe's stance above on the various issues: abortion, civil rights, crime, family, gun control, healthcare, immigration. You can read those above. On civil rights, she has earned endorsements from the Victory Fund, which is a PAC, political action committee devoted to electing pro-choice LGBTQ candidates. She pledges to fight for equality for the gay community. On immigration, she opposes voter ID laws. She opposes the wall at the border. She wants immigration reform that gives a pathway to citizenship. So that's Lupe Valdez in a nutshell. And our third party, the Libertarian Party, lest we forget, our candidate's name is Mark J. Tibbetts. On civil rights, he opposes any legislation that permits government to become involved in our personal affairs, where such authority has not been exclusively granted via constitutional provisions. He is also in favor of gay rights. On the topic of immigration, immigration is a legitimate national concern and issue, but building a border wall is a Texas issue. So he's saying that the border wall is not a national issue, but it is a state-specific issue, and he believes that the right to work or travel is inherent personal liberty and should not be unduly impeded by the laws of government. Next office, Lieutenant Governor. We've got, I think this is a duplicate slide. I'm going to... actually, no. Lieutenant Governor, this is the next office. 1 second, let me make sure the names are off, so I'm just gonna, basically the Lieutenant Governor is the second highest elected official after the Governor. I'm gonna jump right into the candidates. We have Dan Patrick, who's a Republican, very high level on him. Civil rights, he opposes legislation that permits government to become involved in our personal affairs, especially as it relates to gay rights. He is in favor of gay rights. Immigration, he thinks immigration is a legitimate national concern and issue, but he also thinks that the border wall, again, is a state issue, not a federal issue. He believes the right to work or travel is inherent personal liberty and should not be unduly impeded by the laws of governments. Our Democratic candidate for this role is Mike Collier. On civil rights, he says that, obviously all Texans should be treated with respect equally. He supports legislation, that is, supporting this principle and opposes things that are discriminatory against any Texas. So his points are, you can't discriminate on the basis of faith, race, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, or socioeconomic status. On the topic of immigration, Mike Collier says people come here for all the right reasons, to make a better life for themselves and for their families, and he thinks that we should treat everybody with respect, make them wonderful neighbors, and that they should have a lawful route to citizenship. 10 minutes? Okay. All right, so because I'm running short on time and there's a lot to cover, we're basically going to skip over the next few candidates. I'm just going to give you the high level before I hand it over to my partner. We have Attorney General's office here. You have the Republican, Democrat, and the Libertarian candidates listed. For Republican office, we have Ken Paxton. For the Democratic office, we have Justin Nelson. For the Libertarian office, we have Michael Ray Harris. And that is my last slide. So thank you so much for your attention. I'm going to hand it over to my partner, and she will pick up on the State Board of Education.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Farhana. So I'll be presenting on the State Board of Education, which was something that Aisha had touched on in the start of the presentation regarding the board education. There are 15 state board education members, and they're elected by Texans to 4-year terms, and each member represents about 1.8 million Texans. The State Board of Education sets policies and standards for the Texas public schools. So if your kids are in public schools, this is important to you because the way that these members will vote is what will determine what goes into what the children will be learning. So they set curriculums, review and adopt instructional materials. They establish graduation requirements. So the SBOE is going to take a final vote on November 12th on some very important changes in the social studies curriculum, which will affect all students who are learning in the Texas public school system for years to come. So some of the major changes that you may be interested in is the changes to the U.S. government syllabus, which will reinsert references to Judeo-Christian, especially biblical law, in sections on major intellectual, philosophical, political, and religious traditions that informed the American founding fathers. They will also reinstate biblical figures of Moses and remove Thomas Hobbes from the section on individuals whose principles of law and government institutions inform the American founding fathers as well. Another important aspect that will be reinstated into the world history section of the syllabus is that they plan to reinstate the Arab rejection of the state of Israel that has led to ongoing conflict in the section that refers to independent movements in Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia. And basically they will be saying that the Arab rejection of the state of Israel is one of those reasons for these ongoing conflicts. They also plan to insert Judeo-Christian legal tradition in the section under the development of the democratic Republican government from its beginning. So the following are the, yeah, sure. So the following are the candidates that you will have a choice to vote on to make these changes. So there are 3 candidates. The first one is Republican candidate Pam Little. Her occupation is she is the co-owner of Ace Fence of DFW, and she's an active community volunteer. It looks like she was the regional vice president for Huff and Miffle Publishers in 2008. So she is so Huff and Miffle Publishers are textbook publishers that actually publish all these textbooks with, according to the standards that will be voted on. Her education is that she attended Texas A&M and graduated from the University of Houston and received a liberal arts degree with a major in social studies. She is involved, she has been the past board, on the board for Allen Fairview Chamber and the Texas Federation of Republican Women, and the executive board of Plano Rotary and the Junior League. And if you ask her why she's running for this office, she believes that public education is vitally important to the success of the country, and being on the State Board of Education, she can be instrumental in educating students to be responsible, patriotic, and productive citizens. The next person is a Democrat. Her name is Suzanne Smith. Her experience is as a social impact architect and a consulting firm certified as Benefit Corporation 9 years ago. She currently serves as an adjunct professor at the University of Texas at Arlington. She has 20 years of experience. Her education, she has an MBA from Duke University, School of Business. She has experience in non-for-profit foundations, corporations, and she also is involved in speed and social change, and she's led many initiatives, including the Phoenix House, American Heart Association, and she's been a committee chair. How are you? Okay, so the next office that we will be looking at is the Collin County Judge. You have two candidates here for the Republicans. You have Chris Hall for the Democrats. You have Danielle Lanier. And the responsibilities of a Collin County Judge is that they have judicial and administrative duties, and they are the presiding officer over the commissioners' courts, and they represent the county in many administrative functions. So the first person we have here is Chris Hall, and prior to his this election, he was a county commissioner. He served as an executive pastor and worked as a corporate accountant and controller for both non-for-profit and for-profit organizations. So basically, he has been an active volunteer and member of the community. He's serving as Republican precinct chair, election judge, and delegate alternate at the Republican State Convention since 1996. He's been endorsed by the Richardson Police Officers Association, the McKinney Police Association, and the Texas Homeschool Coalition Association. Our Democratic candidate here is Danielle Lanier. She is a Navy vet, currently a senior organizational trainer and project analyst for the United Health Group, and serves for the Board of Ethics in the city of Wiley. So her civic involvement includes volunteering for veterans' career fairs, assisting military members, veterans, and their spouses in finding rewarding careers around the state of Texas. And her most recent efforts are volunteering to help those affected by Hurricane Harvey. As a judge, Danielle plans to make choices based on values rather than personal gain. She approaches issues with positive, honest, and respectful insight, and is interested in finding a solution and not just being right. Is this the last one?
Yeah.
Yes. So the last seat that we're looking at, especially important for the EPIC congregants, is the state senator for District 8. And we have two candidates here. The first one, which is Republican, being Angela Paxton, and the second one as Mark Ferris. And so Aisha had spoken about the U.S. senators, but here we're talking about Texas senators, which the Senate is composed of 31 members who represent 31 separate geographical districts in the state, and each senator serves 4-year terms, or each Senate serves a 4-year term, and they're not subject to term limits. In addition to their role as being negotiators within the state legislators, senators must act in a managerial role to oversee staff and advisors. They are responsible for passing bills on public policy matters and setting levels for state spending and raising and lowering of taxes. So this seat would be important to the EPIC congregants here. So our first candidate is Angela Paxton. She is an educator by profession. She has been teaching for 22 years, and she worked both as a math teacher and a mentor to high school students. A view on major issues. She's a conservative Republican. She's pro-life and has been an active defender in that area. She believes that Texas should have strong borders. They should end policies that encourage illegal immigration and support legislative efforts to secure our borders, including the use of a physical barrier such as a wall. She is endorsed by the Collin County Deputy Association, the Texas Homeschool Coalition, and the Collin County Conservative Republicans. Mark Ferris is the Democratic candidate for this office, and he is a lawyer, a civil rights advocate for the past 20 years. He's fought for pro-equality legislation and non-discrimination ordinances in the cities of San Antonio and Plano against bathroom bills. His education is that he has a BA from Westminster College and a JD from Vanderbilt Law School. His views on major issues is that healthcare is a human right, and state lawmakers are denying our fellow Texans by not expanding Medicaid. Every Texan deserves access to healthcare, and affordable healthcare, and will fight for a state education budget that pays fair and equitable share of education costs. He believes that everyone should be treated equally regardless of race, religion, color, creed, and sexual orientation. So he's served on numerous boards, including the Board of Governors and the Board of Human Rights Campaign and Inequality in Texas. He's endorsed by the Dallas Morning News, the Dallas Stonewall Democrats, Planned Parenthood in Texas, and Human Rights Campaign, and the LGBTQT Victory Fund. So those were the candidates, and we hope that that presentation was helpful for you to be introduced to some of the people that you will potentially be voting for, and I'll pass it back to Aisha.
I just had a quick question. How many of you have already voted? Show of hands, please. All right, probably roughly about half. And how many of you are going to be voting this week or on? Okay, good. That's what I wanted to see. Okay, Jazakallah.
Jazakumullah khairan, both Sister Aisha and Sister Farhana. Before we open Q&A to the floor, I want to emphasize that the Board of Education election is very critical because most of the community's children go to public schools. And the people who sit on this board, they decide what your children learn. So a case in point is in the Wiley School District, they are still teaching, to the best of my knowledge. You can turn that off so that it doesn't get a feedback. Dante's Inferno, which depicts the Prophet ﷺ in the hellfire. Ya'idhu billah. We tried to get that book pulled out, but we were not successful. But alhamdulillah, last year, the Plano School District pulled out that book from the English literature class. So this is one example, and there could be many others. And also, there are many other issues that the two sisters have pointed out. CARE issued a community alert a few days ago that contains all the links and information, including a link to a news story in the Dallas Morning News. As Texans, you have the right to file a complaint by going to the SBOE, State Board of Education website. And also, if you can take the time out to go to Austin on the 12th, they will be actually allowing people to make statements in the chamber. So this is very important. Now, why we are educating people is because, as the topic said, the topic of the program, know before you go. So vote with knowledge who you are electing. And a disclaimer that neither East Plano Islamic Center nor CARE endorses any political candidates. whether Republican, Democrat, Libertarian. We are non-profit 501c3 organization. So this is a disclaimer. We are just providing this information so that you have the information at your disposal before you hit the ballot box. So with that said, inshallah ta'ala, we will take questions from the audience. On the sister side is Sister Afnan to facilitate the questions. On the brother side is the ones hiding behind Abdullah Akram. So inshallah, he will be handing the microphone to anybody who would like to ask a question. So I see a question over there.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. I just had a couple of questions. First, I wanted to know, in the beginning of the education presentation, you asked about that they're looking at insertion of these particular language about the high school and I mean about the Judeo-Christian references. Which particular party is pushing for these insertions of these languages? Party and candidates, I meant.
So I'm not 100% sure on the answer to this. My understanding, though, is that the education boards are nonpartisan. Is that correct?
Okay. My second question is...
So again, do you want to? Sorry.
So I can take a guess, but I'm not sure. No, we can't take it.
So there's not an official. No. So the thing is that there's not a one issue voting, right? If this is the issue that you're going to vote on in the ballot box, there's the issues that we highlighted in our presentations are the issues that the candidates have official platforms on.
Okay.
This is very specific to the State Board of Education. And so I think what's a little confusing, and I can see where the confusion is that there's multiple elections and multiple campaigns running. And on top of that, everything is based on the district that you're in. So again, this campaign, the SBOE, this is setting the curriculum standards for the Texas public schools. So this is a very specific campaign. And so the candidates that you're going to the ballot box on, I mean, they don't really have official platforms on this. This is just something that you will have the opportunity to vote on, or the SBOE is going to be voting on. So I understand that if you want to take that, the rest of that. And I did want to add one more thing to that. So in addition to voting, there's definitely other avenues to get more involved. So there's different levels of, there's the State Board of Education, and then also local school districts have their own education councils. In the city of Irving, we had a Sister Nuzhat Hai, who just recently got elected to the Irving, local education, board. So if you are in the field of education, if your relatives, your wives, your sisters, your brothers are in this field, don't just stop at voting. I encourage everyone to get get involved in these different decision-making bodies.
My other question is, I wanted to know which, sorry.
If there is no one, then the mic will come back, inshallah. But we want to be equitable that others have a chance. No questions? Okay. So you are...
I wanted to ask which party and which candidates are actually pushing for a higher allocation of the state budget towards education and towards healthcare.
I'm so sorry about that. Is this presentation going to be available somehow to the EPIC members, or?
Yes, it can be made.
Yeah, I think that's kind of it's a good question. It's just kind of a lot to cover, I would say, in terms of a response right now. I would say if you want to, let's just focus on the top two roles. So the first one is the obviously the senator position. So if you can see here, the Republican Party, their stance as it relates to, you said, did you say healthcare?
Yes, healthcare and education.
Okay, so education is not listed. I can discuss healthcare since I didn't cover it during my presentation. So essentially the current existing law known as Obamacare, but it's the, you know, I believe it's the federal... Affordable Care Act, thank you. So Republican says it's bad. Democrats oppose repealing it. So Democrats obviously are in favor, and the libertarian stance on that is that every American should be able to shop both directly for insurance with or without a job, directly for medical care with or without insurance, and without price, service, or tax discrimination. So in a nutshell, I think that there's one party that's for, or excuse me, it's against. One party is for the Obamacare, and then one has a little bit more of a detailed response. So again, if we can make the presentation available, you can do your research on the rest of the platform.
And everyone's position is available. There is a website. I'm not sure if it is just a recently launched website. It's called Ballotpedia. So if you go to Ballotpedia, just like Wikipedia, it has everything about the candidates. If they have been interviewed, their answers to those interview questions are posted there, and their educational background, their stand on issues, gun control, Obamacare, and others. All right, going once. Going twice. Yes, Bismillah.
Regarding, I understand EPIC cannot endorse any candidates, but you as an individual, you can just give your recommendation. I mean, you're not representing EPIC or the board, and I don't see what's the problem. Or if EPIC is holding this kind of activity, which is great, but you cannot tell people which are, pro, Muslim, not only ideas, but support services, and at the same time, the Muslim ban. There's a lot of issues that affects us Muslims. So why can't we, have the, people, do that, You understand my question?
Yeah. Your question was basically, why can we not advise you what is in the best interest of Muslims? So that is basically, it's a very valid question, and the answer, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, to reiterate what I said earlier, there are organizations that will tell you that they have a list of candidates that you should vote for. As a non-profit tax-exempt organization, This is something we cannot do. EPIC and CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations. Now, as far as EPIC is concerned, EPIC has had at least 2 programs in which they had invited the candidates on Friday, the last Friday or the one before, and also so you will have a chance actually to interface and interact with the candidates themselves directly and ask any questions that you want. Just like Brother Akmam Ghazi had a program across from the Masjid in the golf course banquet hall. Van Taylor and a few others had showed up, and they were asked questions. So that is an opportunity, but it goes against the grain of non-profit organization that they cannot, they have to walk a very fine line.
And I'm happy to talk to you afterwards if you want to get more specific as to the legalities as to why, but I can explain that.
Who's the organizations you say that we can go on and give us the list?
So one organization here is OCPA. It's also known by its long name, ocpana.com, so you can check it out. And OCPANA, I believe, OCPANA. The brother lives in our community and is very, very involved and very educated in these matters. So this is something we all should be very savvy about, what is going on and how it impacts our lives. And as we know, some of like this race, the seat, the District 3 seat that Sam Johnson is vacating after 25 years, whoever comes in, he or she could impact our lives in this district for years and years to come. And the younger this person is, the longer this person might remain in that position, right? Okay, okay, there's... Okay, let me bring the mic to you.
Assalamu alaikum. I just had a quick question. You had 3 phases about the insertion of phrases in the history books and other things, and we saw 3 candidates, I believe Suzanne and a couple of others. So do you know who's favoring it, who's disfavoring it? Because we don't know what are their motives, and
I think I don't know if you heard my earlier answer. I just covered that question.
I went outside to
I see. Yeah. So basically, this is a state board of education, and it's a nonpartisan board. It's not Democratic or Republican, and none of the candidates have a specific platform or they don't favor it or don't favor it. The platforms that the candidates have are already been covered, and this is just very specific to the Texas state curriculum, education curriculum.
So we don't have any voice, or we can't express.
The member of the public can write to them, informing them of their preference, their opposition to the proposed changes, right? So the member of the public, by filing a complaint online or going to Austin on the 12th of November, when they will have a hearing and a final vote about this. So there is an avenue for the public to express their views. Inshallah, it seems like...
brothers, real quick, if you have not already liked DFW Muslim Bar Association on Facebook, definitely follow the DFW Muslim Bar Association. We're a new nonprofit, and both Farhana and I are members, so please do like us on Facebook. Jazakallah.
جزاكم الله خيرا سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك